Hello friends. Welcome to my new Spring Programming tutorial series video. Let's move ahead. Today, we will discuss how to configure Java collections in Beans in Spring Framework. Moving ahead. Friends. In order to configure Java collections in Spring Bean as property, we have to perform below steps as: Step 1, create simple Spring Bean class messages. Step 2, create Spring Bean configuration file beans XML. Step 3, configure collections as a bean property. Step 4, create a test class messages test. Step 5, run the messages test class. Let's move ahead and discuss above steps in great detail. First, let's create messages Spring Bean. Let's discuss code point by point. Number 1, create a package into which messages bean is placed. In our case, it's com.hubberspot.spring. Moving ahead. Number 2, create a public class by name messages. This class will be our Spring Bean class for the example. Moving ahead. Number 3, create a list instance variable into messages. Let's say name of list variable is list of messages. This variable will hold list of messages, which we want to display on the console through Spring. Moving ahead. Number 4, create getters and setters for the list of messages instance variable. Moving ahead. Number 5, create a method display message in the messages bean. This method when called will print value hold by the list of messages on the Java console. Moving ahead. Let's create Spring configuration file by name beans.xml. Let's discuss Spring configuration file point by point. In order to provide information to Spring container about the bean messages and other beans, we create this Spring configuration file. Number 1, this configuration file has beans tag. This tag holds all the definition for the Spring beans. Beans tag has a child tag by name bean. This tag provides information to Spring container about each individual bean. Let's say we provide bean definition for messages. Bean tag has few attributes which provide information about the messages bean. It has ID attribute, whose value is list of messages. The ID of Spring Bean should be unique throughout the Spring configuration file. Moving ahead. Number 2, let's associate a class with this unique list of messages ID. There is a class attribute to provide the fully qualified class name. In our case, fully qualified class name for messages bean is com.hubberspot.spring.messages. Spring container will be responsible to instantiate and control this bean. Moving ahead. Number 3, in our previous slide, we created a messages bean, which has an instance variable say list of messages. When we want Spring to instantiate the messages bean for us, we have to provide values for the instance variable it holds. In our case, bean tag has a property tag. This tag has name attribute. Name attribute takes in the name of instance variable, in our case it's list of messages. This name is exactly same as the messages bean's list of messages property. Moving ahead. As list of messages variable is a list of messages. In order to configure collection as a bean property, Spring provides a child tag for property tag, as list, set, map, etc. These tags allows Spring to support configuring collections as bean property. In present slide, and upcoming 2 slides, we will see how we can configure collections as Spring Bean property. In this slide, we have taken a list. Here, list tag has child tag as value. Value tag takes in the single value for the list of messages. As in our present slide, there are 3 value tags. It means list of messages will hold 3 messages such as, hello friends. Welcome to Spring. How are you? Moving ahead, we can see similar configuration for set collection. Set is configured same as list in previous slide. The only difference is the property subtag changes from list to set. Moving ahead. In order to configure map, we have to provide key and a value. In slide, map is configured by key and value tag in property tag. Each key and value tag comes under a tag called as entry tag. Here, each entry represent a key and value in map. Moving ahead. In our current tutorial, we will demonstrate how list works and rest of collections working is same. Moving ahead. When Spring is requested for the messages bean. Spring instantiates messages bean and does setter injection with the list of messages property as hello friends. Welcome to Spring. How are you? By calling setter for list of messages property. Moving ahead. Let's create a messages test class. Let's discuss code point by point. Number 1, ApplicationContext is a Spring interface which creates the bean as per configurations provided by beans.xml file. It provides us with all the methods that Bean Factory provides. It loads the file resources in an older and generic manner. It helps us to publish events to the listener registered to it. It also provides quick support for internationalization. It provides us with the object requested, it reads the configuration file and provides us with the necessary object required. We are using concrete implementation of ApplicationContext here called as ClassPath.xml ApplicationContext because this Bean Factory reads the XML file placed in the class path of our application. We provide ClassPath.xml ApplicationContext with a configuration file called as beans.xml placed at class path of our application. Moving ahead. Number 2, in order to get an object instantiated for a particular bean, we call getBean method of ClassPath.xml ApplicationContext passing it the ID, for which the object is to be needed. In our case, we want object of class messages bean. Thus, we provide the ID for messages bean class as list of messages. This ID has to match with the ID which we provided in beans.xml file. Here getBean returns an object. We need to cast it back to the messages object. Without implementing new keyword we have got object of messages, just by reading an XML configuration file. Moving ahead. Number 3, after getting instance for messages bean, let's call its display message method. As discussed above, display message prints the list of messages value on the console. In the configuration file, we provided list of messages value as hello friends. Welcome to Spring. How are you? So upon running of the program it should print hello friends. Welcome to Spring. How are you? On the console. Moving ahead. Let's run the test class. In the console we see list of messages gets printed, as shown in the figure. Moving ahead. So friends, go through this video 2 to 3 times so that collections configuration in Spring Bean gets more clear to you. Hope you like this video. Please give 1 minute to like, share, comment or subscribe my channel, or you can visit my website at www.hubberspot.com.